And where have you been, my darling young one? I stumbled on the sides of 12 misty mountains. I'm walking and crawling 6 crooked highways. I've stepped in the middle of 7 sad forests. I've been out in front of a dozen dead oceans. I've been 10,000 miles in the mouth of a graveyard. And it's hard, and it's hard, and it's hard, and it's hard, and it's a hard rains are gonna fall. Oh, what did you see, my blue-eyed son? And what did you see, my darling young one? Some newborn baby with wild wolves all around it. I saw a highway of diamonds with nobody on it. I saw a black...
What role should the United States play in defending the world's democracies? As Theodore Roosevelt stated in 1899, "Speak softly but carry a big stick." This quote, although written many years before the Cold War, does relate to it. The United States have always remained to be the neutral fighting force in both world wars and have gotten only involved when there was an absolute necessity. The Cold War is similar because it had the potential to be a war of utter destruction, but the U.S. was ready, quietly waiting for it, if, just if, the Soviet Union were to launch their missiles towards our direction. So to sum it up, the United States in a way is like a parent country, where they will be quiet and easy, but will, when necessary, get the other countries back in line.
For example, the Cuban Missile Crisis, which was October 16, 1962 to October 28, 1962, was a 13-day confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union concerning American missile deployment in Turkey and Italy and Russian missile deployment in Cuba. Each country was at great risk. Both the Soviet Union and United States had trigger fingers and could easily obliterate the other. The secret U.S. missile positioning in Turkey and secret Soviet Union missile positioning in Cuba. This was the first major nuclear standoff the world has ever seen. One slip up and the other country could be absolutely destroyed. This showed the U.S. military and the Soviet Union military the effects of nuclear war and the sheer destruction that would come from it.
In 1962, the Cold War was heating up in America's backyard. Since aligning himself with the Soviet Union, Cuban dictator Fidel Castro was an object of growing U.S. concern. A failed attempt to oust him from power in April 1961 through the use of Cuban exile forces emboldened both Castro and his Kremlin supporters. In May 1962, Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev offered to install offensive nuclear weapons in Cuba. Castro readily agreed, viewing the missiles as a deterrent against another U.S. attempt to force him from power. Missiles began to arrive that summer under the tightest secrecy. Khrushchev's plan depended on getting the missiles operational before the Americans discovered they were there.
This led to the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. On August 5, 1963, representatives of the United States, Soviet Union, and Great Britain signed the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. This treaty prohibited the testing of nuclear weapons in space, underwater, and in the atmosphere. This treaty was the first step that held the importance of the control of nuclear weapons. This treaty was made because nuclear arms were reaching a dangerous level and public protestations against the testing of nuclear weapons were increasing. Supporters believed this would help keep nuclear weapons out of terrorists' hands.
This relates to our answer because the United States had to act as a parent country and make the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty to make sure that there was no destruction caused by nuclear weapons.
Another example would be the Bay of Pigs invasion.
The president's first drastic decision involved Cuba. and resulted in the fiasco at the Bay of Pigs.
In April 1961, the CIA launched a full-scale invasion on Cuba by 1,400 American-trained Cubans who had fled their homes when Castro took over. The invasion was a complete disaster, ending within 24 hours. 114 allies were killed and over 1,100 were taken prisoner. A radio station on the beach received every detail about the invasion and projected it across Cuba, allowing the communists to intercept and prevent the invasion. According to many historians, the CIA and the Cuban Exile Brigade believed that President Kennedy would eventually allow the American military to intervene in Cuba on their behalf. However, the president was resolute. As much as he did not want to abandon Cuba to the communists, he said he would not start a fight that might end in World War III. His efforts to overthrow Castro never flagged. In November 1961, he approved Operation Mongoose, an espionage and sabotage campaign, but never went so far as to provoke an outright war. During the Bay of Pigs invasion, America attempted to be a parent country, but it failed.
Another example would be the flexible response. This was implemented by John Kennedy in 1961. This was a defense strategy that uses diplomatic, economic, political, and military options to help prevent and stop attacks. Nuclear weapons couldn't be used. This relates to the answer because the United States had to be the parent country and make a defense strategy that didn't use nuclear weapons to keep people safe.